Vinland Saga. Now, I've been a fan of this series for a while, and it's been under a lot of scrutiny lately due to its recent performance. And I never really give my 2 cents. So, we're going to be talking about it. Vinland Saga had a great 2020. So, stay tuned. Everybody get your fucking hands up. Nope, not at all. Now, that doesn't mean it had a bad year, though. I still think the year was decently good for the series. But yeah, nothing I'll put on the pedestal, nothing I'll praise. It did this thing. It did this thing. Now, my 2 cents was that it's basically split up to like three kind of main parts last year, right? Because it was like 169 to 178. So 169 to 170 was pretty much the Cornelia, backstory and like the after effects of it. Then 171 to like 175 was them, him talking of Ivor and then them departing later on. Then from 1676 to 178 was them like leaving their island and then going with Leaf and ended up going back to Finland. Now, in those three parts, Cornelius was decently good. Like I won't speak on like the stuff that happened right before it because that's 2019 stuff. But yeah, people were kind of wanting it. Like it was a bit dragging. Like we was focusing a little too much on Cornelia. Keep in mind this is monthly chapters, right? So people have to wait a month for them. And then yeah, so they're focusing too much on her. And then the backstory itself did end up people's top faves, so it didn't really balance out the wait time of the payoff. But I still liked it. I liked like the theme behind Cornelia because she had a complicated birth, right? She was born a guy, but she was gonna be raised on a battlefield, and the mom didn't want that. So the mom lied to the dad and said she was a girl to avoid her having that lifestyle. And then she was raised as a girl, grew up as a girl, and then and Cornelia didn't feel like that was fake. Cornelia liked that kind of lifestyle she grew under. She didn't think that was like a lie. So but because of the complications with it, she still stuck with like sleeping in like the guy's room and stuff like that. Like some people don't really respect her position and her identity, and she's not even called by her female name most of the time. So, and she was still asking if she can go to Vinland. So I did like that Thorfinn said everyone can come in, and then even a slave, like not only just a slave but also kind of having those identity problems that people are kind of putting on her, she's still allowed to go. That's a good kind of theme for that Yukimura was kind of setting up, and he delivered that pretty well. Of course, it still didn't end up one of my favorite backstories even in the series, but it was good. It did its thing. And then of course right after, Thorpe was talking to Halfdan to kind of convince Cornelia to come in the crew, and then he was talking about how he's pretty, him and Einar did cleared out all that land back in the farmland arc, and he can do that again in Finland, like the island. And having Cornelia there, now Halfdan could like have a farm in Vinland through Cornelia. So he would want Cornelia to obviously go to Finland and do that. So it ends up working. So shout out Thorfinn for that. But we end up moving on to like the second phase, which is the stuff of Ivar. Now with 171, not much happened. Of course there was like the slice of life stuff, and I don't mind slice of life stuff. Like that's cool. But I feel like what we got in those slice of life stuff could have definitely be shortened. Like we didn't need the whole chapter on just that, right? Because only the last few pages was setting up for the talk of Ivor. But he could have definitely condensed some of the previous slice of life stuff, like Gudrun just like walking around doing her thing. Like I like those scenes. We just didn't need a whole chapter on it, especially if you wait a month for them. But I feel like his page efficiency could have been a bit better in that chapter. So that's the kind of chapter people go to when they kind of complain about stuff like that. But at least this talk is Ivor, and I actually like this talk of Ivor. I did think it could be a bit better because at the end of the day, Ivor wasn't really convinced at all at anything Thorfinn was saying, and it's not like Thorfinn had to convince him, but Ivor didn't even see his point of view. So because like Ivor was talking about how we need weapons to kind of maintain peace. And then he was saying how weapons, because number one, they didn't understand, like they can't understand the language of like the tribes in Finland, and two, those tribes also have weapons as well. So Ivor's like, no, we're really putting ourselves in a very bad position. Like if things go down, we're all dead, and it'll be your fault. And then Thorfinn's like, he'll figure it out when he gets there. And of course, that answer is so baseless for most people. Of course, he's the MC, so we know he'll figure something out. But like normally, the answer is baseless, and most people won't accept it. And one other thing about that talk was that like Thorfinn was literally agreeing with everything Ivor was saying. Ivor was just like, hey, we need it for this reason, we need it for that reason. So okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, you spitting. Yeah, I agree. And then he's like, all right, since you agree, let's bring weapons. And then he's like, nah. And that sort of reminded me of that SpongeBob meme. I know y'all know what I'm talking about, where Patrick literally agreed with everything the guy was saying, and then still said no, and then he's just confused. So yeah, I felt like it could have just been like tweaked a bit to be a bit better, like just overall. But I did like what the talk did. It was pushing Thorfinn because he's pretty idealistic, and that talk really pushed him. But like I said, at the end of the day, like the mind state Thorfinn and Ibra had pre that talk and after it was pretty much the same. So like I feel like if we had a bigger change, like Ibra didn't really have to change his stance, but just just a bigger kind of, okay, I see what you're saying. That would have been just a bit more, like it will feel a bit more powerful than just like having nothing happen. But yeah, moving on from Ivor, he starts talking about Halfdan, about why it's necessary for weapons. And Halfdan kind of agrees with Ivor, saying that it's a necessary evil, that kind of thing. And then Thorfinn ends up finding out that interdependence is his answer. Like being able to depend on the tribes in Vinland and then having them depend on Thorfinn's group would actually keep them from dying, because the tribe, obviously, if you're dependent on Thorfinn's group, let's say they got iron and other commodities that you want, you obviously wouldn't want to kill them, because then you won't have those commodities anymore. And it could even be stuff like knowledge, right? So I like that chapter a lot too, because that chapter really gave insight on how Thorfinn would approach the whole how Yahweh will approach Finland and stuff like that, because it's still a big question on what he's gonna do when he gets there. Then Sigurd comes back, and right on time, because Halfdan was offering Thorfinn to be like his son, and then but he have to stay on Iceland, but he would have to, like, he would send the prophets back and handle the logistics, which is honestly a pretty good deal. But Thorfinn wants to go there, obviously, himself. So, and then Sigurd came back with his kid, and then Halfdan ends up giving it to the kid instead. And one thing about that chapter that was odd was that Sigurd and Thorfinn really didn't have a big talk. Like, they just like had like a small kind of, oh, you're here, yeah, had that, he's kind of hard-headed. Oh, you're married to Gudrid, cool. Oh, you're going to Finland, good luck. And then like that was kind of it. I'm just like, Sigurd and Thorfinn are pretty big characters. Like I would expect at least a few pages of just like back to back, because Sigurd just had his own adventure, an adventure just like it parallels Thorfinn's Greece adventure as well. And Sigurd could have definitely given some insight on what he learned, because Sigurd and Thorfinn definitely have parallels with each other, and especially what they learn and their ideologies of war and stuff like that are pretty similar. So I feel that if we actually got like a good talk with Sigurd, like Sigurd's an important, like, well, what's going on? Why are we just brushing over him? But yeah, if you actually had like a good talk with Sigurd and Thorfinn, and then like Thorfinn could honestly learn a thing or two from Sigurd's adventure, because you can always learn something from someone else's new experience. So yeah, I feel like that's a missed opportunity. He should have definitely had that. Then in 175 we find that Ivor actually snuck weapons on board, and that we pretty much know how this is gonna go, right? Like they're gonna be like, oh, you have no weapons, like the tribes, you have no weapons, good, we won't harm you. Then they see, the weapons Ivor snuck on, oh, you're a liar. The Thorfinn's like, whoa, I'm not a liar. And then so I'm happy, because I do like chaos. So the fact that Ivor snuck on the weapons, I know that's definitely gonna be trouble later down the line. But one odd thing was, why was Gudrid checking, like, y'all know that video with like the old man that was patting down this security guard? That's literally how she was checking people for their weapons. Like, you gotta be kidding me, bro. Like, if things go down, we can low key blame her. But yeah, and then after that, they depart, and then we get them on with Leaf, right? And then the Leaf chapters was actually pretty good. You know, Leaf 176 I think was the best chapter of last year, even though like especially the ending. But Askelash should low key not be there, but you know, I'm gonna just keep it to myself. But yeah, like learning that Leaf, you know, he was talking about how he was always hinted that if anyone could do it, it's Thorfinn, because everyone else approached it in a very violent manner. And after Thorland post Farmland showed Leaf that new side to him, Leaf was like, yeah, like you could be the chosen one. And you know, Leaf giving him those the advice and then just that talk in general, it was just really good. You know, that chapter was really nice. I enjoyed it a lot. And yeah, the next two chapters after that just talk about the ships, you know, getting ready for sail. You know, Gudrid meeting with her family. You know, Pug guys got swindled, and then they actually start sailing, and then they're on the ship sailing, and then he's just flexing with his art for 178. You know, he's just drawing Manga and all that shit. So yeah, it was, you know, like I said, it's decently good. You know, like the whole year decently good. Definitely not like fantastic, great, spectacular. And it's funny too because we're leading up to our arc that should be fantastic, great, and spectacular, but the build up to it isn't really impressing me whatsoever. But it's definitely not as bad as people say. That's for sure. Now, for like the big picture, I'll say that yeah, the art has been decently good, not great. But I am kind of excited for the final arc, not due to the build-up we got here, but due to just like it's a series-wide build-up, right? So Farmland forward, we kind of was building up to this event, especially with this talk with Canute, that kind of sealed the deal about how good this arc is gonna be, and I still think this arc is gonna end up, you know, top tier, really, really, really good. But yeah, like I said, I really can't call it a good year, you know, because there are a lot of things you could have tweaked here and there, some chapters that are necessary kind of stuff going on. And honestly, for like this track's supposed to make you really hype for Vinland, and it really didn't make me like any more hype than I already was. If anything, I was a bit more concerned that if this the kind of like if this the kind of pace we're going, like maybe he might not turn it up enough for Vinland to actually hit. But I still have faith. So yeah, like Yukimura, good mangaka, but yeah, like my 2 cents, year wasn't that good. You know, is what it is. Not everyone gonna have. Series has been what 15 plus years, so not a big deal. Having like an iffy year like it did last year, but like I said, decent good year, not a great one, that's for sure. And yeah, didn't do a good job hyping me, man. Like he really should have just had something that I'm like, yeah, next arc, peak fiction. But I'm reading these chapters 169 to 178. I'm reading them. I'm like, yeah, they're decently good. You know, they're good, but that's about it. You know, we're about to reach peak of the series, and I'm not really getting any hype, nothing like that. But good content regardless. You know, future arc should be a 10 out of 10, and next arc we're literally gonna arrive there. So hopefully it starts off with a bang. I feel like this year 2021 will be clear from 2020. It should be. And it should be clear from a lot of series actually. So I'm excited for that. You know, I hope he drops all 12 chaps. And yeah, I hope he eat. You know, like this should end up in my like top 15 arcs. So alright y'all, that's about it. Wraps it up. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you later.